Low water flow with a high temperature is the ideal case or the ideal circumstances for your viruses, for your molds, for your pathogens, your bacteria to grow. And that's what we want to stress out. Be sure what you're doing.
Swine it. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Swine It podcast. I'm your host, Trey Kellner, and even though I said good morning, I want to say good evening to our guest, Tim Verbruggen, who's the Global Product Managers for the Schippers Group. Tim, good evening. How are things in Belgium today?
Things in Belgium are very good. So I've heard from you, Trey, that you had some snow, like 1.5 meters. We have to be satisfied with between 5 and 20 centimeters. So it's nice cold and it's still white here.
Yes, no, the past week, and I know this episode will air a bit later, but the past week here in the middle of January, from Nebraska to Ohio, has just been slammed with snow. So the pig belt, as we like to say stateside, is currently blanketed with white snow for sure. So awesome. Well, hey, Tim, today we're going to focus on water and specifically water treatments. And let's just start off first by just introducing yourself to our audience, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. So my name is Tim Verbruggen, living in Belgium, all my life living in Belgium, working for a company that has its main base in the Netherlands, namely the Schippers Group. So, like you've said, Trey, I'm the global product manager, but a global product manager for the nutritional side. So the feed supplements for all species, poultry, ruminants, and pigs, are related to my function as a global product manager. Before that, I was working for a premix company. So I was a nutritionist who was selling the vitamins, minerals, trace elements mixed together for the three species. And I formulated the feed for feed companies and for farmers who made their own feed.
Want to save up to 25% in labor time when cleaning your barns? With MS Top Foam Power, you effectively remove all historical pollution. MS Top Foam Power ensures the surface is perfectly clean and ready for disinfection. Find your dealer at www.msgold.eu.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Tim. So let's start big picture, right? I often think that water is the forgotten nutrient. Tim, what do you think that is?
I can totally comply with you. So water is often the forgotten element. What's a pity, actually, because if you are looking at the animals, they are drinking at least 2 times what they are eating. And in certain cases, we are even speaking about 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So that's point one. And the second point, and that's also the explanation why I think we don't pay enough attention to the water side. Looking at your feed is the main cost of your production side. Feed is the most expensive element that you have on your farm. And compared to that cost, if you're looking at your water cost, it's negligible. So it doesn't cost enough to get enough attention. And of course, we are always starting with water of good quality. If we are taking city water or we are taking source water from our well, it starts with good quality. And in the major cases, in the most numerous cases, we are starting with good quality. We have nice and clean water lines, so the water will reach our animals in a good way as well. And that's not the case. Because if we are taking a closer look, so for example, our weaning department, where the piglets are entering from 7 kilograms or something like that, the temperature is very high there. We are talking about around 30 degrees Celsius, and the water flow is very low. And a low water flow with a high temperature is the ideal case or the ideal circumstances for your viruses, for your molds, for your pathogens, your bacteria to grow. And that's what we want to stress out. Be sure what you're doing. And that's also what we are doing. We are taking a look inside that water line. We want to be sure what is happening in that water line because you cannot see without a good camera, without an endoscope, for example. So that's what we are doing in the farm as well. We want to be sure that the water is getting the attention it deserves. And that's what we want to do with our farmers, is we want to take them with us and take a look inside the water lines, and then you will see a biofilm. Then you will see the color of your water. Then you will smell your water. And then the question will arise, do you dare to drink your own water? And in most of the cases, if we have looked at the color of the water, we have smelled the water, we have taken a look at the biofilm, there are not many farmers that will say, okay, I will do this.
Mm-hmm. And even just big picture, Tim, we were talking before we started recording this podcast that water intake is highly correlated and highly causative of feed intake, right? So whether we're talking about lactation or that newly weaned pig, or even at late finishing when we're trying to put every pound or kilo on before market, water intake is extremely important. So if we don't have that right, it doesn't matter what our diet formulation is at the end of the day, right? It'll be impacted. So let's start big picture with water treatments. And I want to group water treatments kind of into two different segments for this podcast. One is the sanitation or the cleaning of the water. And then the other we'll get to is the acidification or the enrichment of the water. So Tim, let's start first with the sanitation or the cleaning of the water. What are those specific treatments designed to do? What are they made of? And how can they impact production?
So looking at the quality of your water, there are two major elements that are important. We are talking about the chemical analysis of your water. That's something that your water brings from itself. You can treat it, but that's not what you do with the cleaning and the disinfectant. But then the second part is your microbiological part of your water. And that's something that you can control with your cleaners and your disinfectants. And that's what we want to do. Because we want to be sure, like we have said in the part before, there is always a possibility that there will be a buildup of biofilm inside your water lines. And you want to be sure that you take away that biofilm, but not in an aggressive way. You don't want to take chunks of that biofilm away, because those chunks are not disinfected and will reach your animals. And we know in the biofilm there are a lot of living elements. There is a lot of microbiological activity. So we want to do it in a smooth, but in an effective way. Second part is we want to treat our water with certain elements, but we do not want to change the water in a negative way. Because we know some elements that we are using as a cleaning or a disinfecting agent will also change the smell of the water, or can even change the taste of the water. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Trey, the water intake is the driving force of your feed intake. And if we change the water intake, if we change the water taste, if we change the water smell, you will lower the water intake, and by doing that, you will lower your technical results. And that's why with the Schippers Group, we are working with a chlorine dioxide, because we know chlorine dioxide does not change the smell, does not change the taste of the water. And by doing that, we are taking away the biofilm in a smooth way. We are disinfecting the water, so we are reducing the number of pathogens. We are killing off the pathogens and the bacteria and so on. And we are making sure that the most important, the most quantitative, because the water is the most quantitative element of your feed, because water and feed go together, is reaching your animals in a safe way.
Oh, yeah. And that's so important, right? Let's just, think about that weaned pig, Tim, right? So coming off, the suckling diet, from its mom, right, in lactation, and all of a sudden it goes through that stress of that transportation and that out of feed event. The first thing that every pig is going to do is drink versus eat, right? So that first taste, if we haven't flushed those water lines, if we haven't cleaned those water lines, if we don't have, a treatment or an enrichment for that, that's the first thing that GI tract is exposed to. And if that's negative, then how are they supposed to start on feed, right?
And an extra element, if you are weaning your piglets, they are under stress. They are completely stressed out. And what's happening with your stressed piglets? That stress will play a huge role on your intestinal wall as well.
Yes.
They are also already more susceptible for pathogens, because the gut wall is not that closed surface anymore that we want it to be. because stress is playing a huge role. So we want to be sure that we take everything into control, that we control every little bit, and be sure that the environment that we are placing our weaned piglets, not only the place, not only the ground, not only the walls, but also what they are eating and what they are drinking, that is safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about the enrichment and the acidification of water next. So what are those treatments? What can they be made of? And how can they be successful, Tim?
Yeah. So if we are sure that our water is safe, then we can start enriching our water. And by enriching our water, we can do a lot of things. For example, if you know that your immunity or your digestion is a little bit low, you can start with a vitamin treatment or a trace element treatment and enrich your water in that way. You can supply them with vitamin A, vitamin B, and things like that. On the other thing that we are doing a lot is we are starting with water that has a pH around 6.5, 7.5 in most of the cases. We are trying to lower that pH to a pH just below 4. Why are we doing that? Because it has a good effect on the stomach as well. How are we doing that? Looking at your acids, you have two groups of acids. You have the organic acids and you have the inorganic acids. Organic acids contain a carbon, at least one carbon. Inorganic acids do not contain carbon at all. Inorganic acids are cheap and are strong. So you would think, let's take those ones. They are also dangerous. Because they are so strong, they will lower the pH too fast and too low in some cases. And another element, if you're looking at your inorganic acids, like for example phosphoric acid or like for example chloric acid, they will not have a direct effect on your gram-negative bacteria like E. coli or and so on. With the organic acids, we are talking about, in most of the cases that we are using, we are talking about carboxylic acids. And carboxylic acids, then we are talking about the short-chain fatty acids and the medium-chain fatty acids. So the SCFAs and the MCFAs. And looking at your SCFAs, most of the names are already known by most of the farmers. We are talking about formic acid. We are talking about acetic acid. We are talking about propionic, lactic, and butyric acid. So that's the carbon, the organic acids that contain between 1 and 4 carbons. Medium chain fatty acids, or MCFAs, contain between the 6 and the 12 carbons. And those are the two groups that we are using most of the time to lower the pH of our drinking water. How do we do that? We add a certain amount of acids combined with a certain amount of salts of those acids. By doing that, we can offer a certain volume of those organic acids because its volume is volume based, and we can lower the pH to a pH of 3.8. And by using organic acids, we are also, like we have said in the cleaning and disinfecting part of this podcast, we are also making sure that the water is not lowered in taste, but by using, for example, lactic acid, we are even increasing the taste of our drinking water. So we are already having a benefit by using our organic acids in a way that you will increase your water intake.
Yeah. Tim, so you can increase water intake by enrichment. What about the beneficial effects of acidifying water? I would assume that there's positive effects on both exogenous and endogenous enzyme machineries, right? And especially that wean pig where their enzyme production may be lower. Tim, what has your group found beneficially about supporting the GI tract in terms of lowering pH and helping enzymes out?
Yeah. Taking a look at your endogenous, so we are talking about the stomach as first element. There are two major and important parts of your stomach. And especially for your newly weaned piglet, the stomach is so important. Because what is the function of the stomach at that moment? It has two functions. First of all, it has to do your digestion. It has to do your enzymatic processing of your protein in the first place. For doing that, it has to produce pepsin. Pepsin is an enzyme. But pepsin is only formed if the pH is low enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an increased pH in your stomach, there is no pepsin being formed. What are we seeing when we are weaning our piglets? Stress and the pH of your stomach is increasing again. So it's not low enough to have a very good digestion of your protein. If we are adding water with a pH of 7, or we are adding water with a pH of 3.8, you can imagine that with a pH of 3.8, the stomach of that weaned piglet can have a smoother and faster adjustment to a lower pH by doing that. And the second part is your stomach has to be a microbiological barrier as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is the first point of defense actually to your GI tract. And so it has to contain some low pH, but we can strengthen that also by adding undissociated, so complete organic acids. Mm-hmm. For example, formic acid, the short-chain fatty acids and the medium-chain fatty acids, if we can make sure that they are undissociated, so complete in the stomach, then we can support the microbiological barrier as well.
Oh, yeah. And that's so important regardless of any situation, but even more importantly, if we have, antibiotic use restrictions or have no antibiotic ever programs or any type of standards like that, just once again, just setting that pig better, basically from mouth, to defecation is extremely important. Tim, go ahead.
Because if you're taking one step further than Trey and you're going to the intestines, there are also organic acids that can have a beneficial effect on your intestines. Because, for example, we know the villi length of your intestinal wall is of huge importance for your digestion. And we also know, because there are scientific studies, that, for example, lactic acid and butyric acid, again, 2 carboxylic acids, can have a beneficial energy source effect on your villi length and help support your villi length. And by helping your villi length, helping your digestion, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And what we are also doing, and that's an extra element, we are not only working with organic acids, but in some of our organic acids, there is also some ethereal oils, some essential oils, just to be sure that we have an extra effect and we have a combination of your organic acids in the one way and your essential oils in the other way, and they can help each other to improve, to support your digestion and your GIT.
Yeah. No, fully agree. Tim, I think as we started, right, water and water treatments can be a black box. I'm sure there are a lot of myths that you try to dispel about water treatments. Tim, here's the opportunity, right, for our listeners. What would you like them to know about water treatments and don't know about water treatments? What myths do you have to bust out there in terms of your day-to-day role?
The biggest myth that I always encounter, Trey, is the myth of if you lower your pH to a pH of 3.8, your piglets won't drink anymore.
Mm.
Let's be sure we are working with a lot of customers. We are working with a lot of farmers all around the world because we are active all around the world. We are acidifying always to 3.8, between 3.6 and 3.8. If you do it in a correct way, there is no problem at all. They will keep drinking. And like I've said, if we are using the right organic acids and we are using the tasteful organic acids, we can even improve in some cases the water intake of your piglets.
Yep. Oh, that's a great one. Any others, Tim, that you would like to address with our audience here?
Yes, of course. For the cleaning and disinfections before, for example, one of the things that is being said, and now it's what's being said with organic acids is that you can clean and disinfect your water lines as well. And I'm a huge fan of organic acids. Like you have already heard, I'm a huge fan. I think they're great. I think they can do their job. There is one thing they cannot do. They cannot clean and disinfect your water lines. You have to use proper elements that will clean and disinfect your water lines. Because in the water lines, we will reach a pH of 3.8. At the pH of 3.8, most of our organic acids will have at the best a bacteriostatic effect. So they will slow down or even inhibit the growth of your bacteria. They will not kill off bacteria. They will not be bacteriocidic. So they will be bacteriostatic, not bacteriocidic.
Gotcha. No, great point to clear up with our audience for sure.
We have a time and labor-saving product for you. AgriSlats by Healthy Farms is your solution. No more lugging jugs around the barn every month. With AgriSlats, you simply drop the slat through the floor twice a year, and it works to break down solids, reduces crusting and forming. To learn more, visit myhealthyfarms.com. It's time for our famous 3. Want to improve feed biosecurity? VVC Premix from DSM Firmenich can reduce pathogen concentration of feed with proven results against ASF, PED, PRRS, and SVA. VVC Premix can also help improve gut functionality, weight gain, and feed efficiency. Learn more at dsm.com/VVC-Premix.
All right, we have some fun questions here to end with to let our audience get to know you better. First of all, we're both dealing with cold winter weather, even though the Atlantic Ocean separates us. What's the one thing in Antwerp that you look forward to the most when spring arrives and the summer or the weather warms up?
That's a very good question and a totally unexpected question. So give me 1 second to think about it. So what is the thing that I look forward to when spring is arriving?
Yes, when we get to April and May, what do you look forward to doing the most in Belgium?
One of those things that I always liked is to sit outside and read and be on a calm way. You can also do that in snow. But it's a totally different experience. And the other element, of course, I'm Belgian, so we are liking a good restaurant visit that you can visit the restaurant again, but also can sit outside and eat your meal outside, for example.
Yes. Yeah. And I've never been, but your city looks absolutely beautiful. I'm sure that it would be tough to actually look at the pages and read versus to look at on the landscape.
Yeah, but the benefit that I am having, Trey, is I'm not living in the city of Antwerp. I'm living at the farm side of Antwerp.
Nice.
So I'm living in the province of Antwerp, but not in the city of Antwerp. It's 20 kilometers, so I can go there whenever I want. But I also have the calm and the tranquility of the of the villages.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. If you could fix one issue about animal agriculture today, which would you pick?
I think looking at the thing that we are doing with the Schippers Group, and one of the things that is the most important and will become more and more important for the next years or even decades will be the antimicrobial resistance.
Mm.
So if we can fix the usage of antibiotics, like you have said, without losing technical results, I think we can make a huge step, because we have seen antimicrobial resistance is a huge problem, but we can turn it back again. So if we can reduce or even scratch, but a sick animal always deserves a treatment. But if we can get a lot of attention to the antimicrobial resistance and take some measurements without losing technical results, that would be the one thing that I would fix.
Good pick for sure. You have a favorite pork recipe?
Oh, I have more than one.
Well, please share.
I have more than one. For example, a typical recipe, and that would be with how do you say that? Pork chops. Pork chops without any sauce, just the butter from the pan, with cooked potatoes and then some nice green beans. It doesn't have to be better. It doesn't have to be more special than that.
Agreed.
Or another thing, if you have some meatballs made of pigs and then you can make them with how do you say that, with some applesauce. That's also a very good choice at my place, actually. So the kids are loving that.
No, both of those are really good and some of my favorites too. All right, last question, Tim, and then we'll let you off the hook for this podcast. What's the biggest hurdle that you've overcome in your career that you're the most proud of?
The biggest hurdle that I have overcome in my career would be my student time that I got my diploma, because that's one of the most difficult hurdles that you are always encountering, I think, Trey. A lot of people, you are still young, you're 17, 18 when you start your master or your bachelor studies. You still have a lot to learn. You do not know 100% what you want from life, what you want to choose from your studies. So it's always it's a good guess, but I would still call it a guess what you will be studying. And that's a hurdle, and that's one hurdle that I'm still proud of that I took that on.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners did too. So this concludes this episode of the Swine It podcast. Hope you check out our weekly episodes. We look forward to listening to more that are coming out. Tim, thank you so much, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you for having me, Trey.